Something about the world ain't right. The darkness lives in plain sight. In the ether, adjust your eyes. There are those that have no clue. You give them hints, they just stare at you. Most have lived in Plato's cave, watching.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I am here today with three amazing women that have certain things in common, which we'll get into in this interview. This is basically, I felt inspired recently to release a cover of Over the Rainbow, and I think there was a lot of layers as to why I wanted to do that. And then I reached out to Lynne about, how a lot of films and music have been used in the MK Ultra programs. And we agreed that it'd be great to bring this panel together and talk about recent happenings in this world and taking the rainbow back. I mean, a lot of things have been inverted. And so it is my absolute pleasure to bring together Cathy O'Brien, Dr. Juliette Engel, and Lynne Scott Haggerman. And ladies, thank you so much for joining me today on Truth Stream.
Thank you for having us on.
So, Lynne's on, I don't know, usually around once a month or so. So we'll start with the conversation Lynne and I had, and then it'll just unfold. But Lynne, where do you want to start with all this? Because I know, I think it's good for people to learn what they have used film and music for as far as mind control. But you ladies might have a different perspective on really like more of a firsthand experience of this stuff. And I think that's part of why I wanted to get into this. So let's start there, if that makes sense.
Sure. So I can start out with, since the Over the Rainbow is through the Wizard of Oz, I know I had extensive Oz programming whenever I was little. And for example, in the Trafficking house was a regional house where I was at from the time I was born till I was 5 years old. And it was ran by an ex-military man who was completely insane. And his daughter and her husband and their children also lived in the house. And anytime I would see the daughter, who was a grown woman, I would see the witch. She was green. And I was programmed to see her that way as part of the ability to control me through that movie. And I'm so happy that you have taken that back. And God started taking that back. So I've had extensive Oz programming. That's been broken. God started taking that back. I want to share a quick story. My mom was responsible for me when I was little, and she clearly failed. She knew where I was going, both there and at the University Medical Center, where they experiment on me underground and the other children. She was fully aware. And when I had to come to grips with that over my life, and whenever the day she died, I didn't know how to feel when I got the news. I didn't know how to feel. And of course, my feelings had been taken away when I was little because the children that felt died. And so I had to really figure out how to feel again. And so I asked God, I said, I don't know how to feel. And he said, ding dong. He has such a sense of humor. That's from the song, Ding Dong, the Witches, you know what I'm saying? And so that was what I was to do. And that's, I knew I was free then from that programming because, but I understood exactly what he meant. And so I celebrated. And part of that song was to have a parade. And I just let the little girl in me have a parade around the house to celebrate her death. And I will say, too, that at her funeral, my nephew came to me and he saw her. He said, Lenny, he was 4 at the time. He said, you know that lady in the box? That's what he called Mom. He was 4 and she was in her coffin. And he said, she's standing right over there. And she has an angel over there and an angel over there. So I know she's in heaven. I'd led her to the Lord a few years before, praise God. So I'm not speaking ill of the dead, so to speak, but it was a relief. It's a relief to victims whenever I would call her my main perpetrator. She was primarily verbally and emotionally abusive, but she was the reason I was there. And once she was dead, I was finally free, because there's still a little part of you that thinks that they can't hurt you anymore. And then one final thing, I still have, I'll say, government organizations following me and doing different things, and I'll see them whenever I'm out and about. And but I was lifting weights in my garage maybe a couple of years ago, and a woman came by on a bike, and it was complete imagery of the witch on their bicycle, and I didn't get triggered. I mean, so I'm so free of that programming. And every now and then when I'm out riding, they'll have her go by just to see if they can, I will say, activate me, and it's over. I mean, I've won and I'm out. So
Wow. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I mean, even when I was a kid, even now, the witch sometimes still triggers me. She's very, very
evil.
yeah, thank you for sharing that. Cathy, welcome back to Truth Stream, and I'd love to hear your input on this topic too, please.
Well, I'm a survivor of CIA MK Ultra mind control, and I was used on a White House Pentagon level when I was real young. In 1957, I was born in Muskegon, Michigan, and the MK Ultra mind control was already in full swing. When people researched for themselves Project Paperclip, it's when we imported the Nazi and fascist scientists into the U.S. With them came the formula for mind control. Formula is the same, whether it's of an individual, a nation, a classroom, a military, or the world, and trauma is the basis of it. And when the conscious mind is shut down, when those neuron pathways shut down, the subconscious mind is wide open to being easily led and manipulated. Without a conscious mind filter, the subconscious takes information in with no critical analysis, no reasoning, no ability to question it. It's just information in. So it's very easy to put information in that is something like the Wizard of Oz, because it's not real on the conscious level, but to the subconscious mind, it can be used and manipulated in many ways. When you research Project Paperclip, you'll see that Walt Disney was part of Project Paperclip. And what does Disney have to do with Werner von Braun, with rocket scientists, NASA, DARPA? Mind control. MK Ultra mind control. So it was from the very beginning that Disney themes were used to manipulate children. They're very, very common themes. But the one that was most pervasive in my MK Ultra mind control programming was Wizard of Oz programming. It was manipulated my subconscious mind, where I had to follow the yellow brick road, robotically do exactly as I was told. And if I didn't, then my dog would be killed or someone would be killed. And that's a very common manipulation of the Wizard of Oz. Ultimately, all of it conditioned me for the later years when I was used in CIA black ops of the drug and human trafficking operations across our open borders. And Oz programming was a heavy theme in all of that, because George Bush Sr. was heavily involved in the opium market, and that's why they called him Poppy Bush. And he was why really we had the war in Afghanistan was to take over the poppy fields, so all that is very significant. Bill Clinton, CIA cocaine ops. He was legendary founder of all of that through the Mina cocaine operations, and the CIA cocaine ops ran through that. Well, both of those, when you think about it, go right into the Wizard of Oz, because when they're in the field of poppies, they fall asleep. When the snow falls, the cocaine, they wake up. So they used the whole thing in drug ops, and they had set me up for it because I was used in those drug ops ever since I was a little bitty girl. I mean, we had the Milwaukee Clipper heavily involved in CIA cocaine back then. My dad was a dealer, so it's been there all my life, and the Disney theme fit right in with it because of the poppies and the snow.
Wow. Wow. I do have a question, but I'll save it for right now. And Dr. Engel, let's hear a little bit about your background, please. Thank you.
Sure. I'm the old lady of the group. I'm going to be 77 in a week. And I was born in 1949. That's the CIA was born in 1947. So all of this came after World War II. All of this shift in the creation of the CIA monster and the development of all their black ops programs, and certainly MK Ultra is a big one. In 1953, the MK Ultra was officially started, officially, unofficially, since it was completely illegal and violated the human rights of everyone involved in it. But they did it anyway. It was given unlimited money. Sidney Gottlieb, Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, who'd been the head of technical services for the CIA and was known as the chief poisoner of the CIA, was put in charge of it because they were starting right out experimenting with LSD on unsuspecting Americans. And Eli Lilly supplied the CIA. This is in a series of documents that I gave you the link to. So this is fact. They admit it. So they obtained unlimited quantities in tonnage of LSD to use on unwitting American victims. I was sold into the program by my father in 1955 and forced to, he watched while I was raped and sold. And I had to watch him count the money. And when I was screaming at him, he was saying, "This is what I raised you for." And that was true. He was telling me the truth for once in my life. And my programming was Alice in Wonderland, and I was most of the time growing up, I was in the Los Angeles, San Diego area. So a lot of my programming took place in Disneyland. Disneyland opened in 1950. Well, it started opening in 1955, and over the course of a year, it opened completely. But I was there since the time it was being built, and a lot of my training in terms of approaching people and soliciting, getting men to do things to me so they could be photographed. All of that took place in the park at Disneyland.
Was it below the park or on the ground level or?
Well, there's a whole infrastructure under the park, and satanic rituals and this kind of thing like the Saturnalias would be carried out down there, and they still are. There were tunnels that connected Disneyland to other sites. I can't tell you what they were because I was always underground. But then they would turn us loose in the park, and our task would be to go out. My job was to get a daddy. Well, they wouldn't feed us. So we'd be ravenously hungry, and they would turn us out in the park and say, go get a daddy to buy you a cheeseburger, and then get him in the Wild Toad ride. That was the ride that I was supposed to get them to take me on. And then there's a place where a light comes at the car, and it's supposed to be a train. It's actually just a light, but it's a train, and it's got a camera, which they don't know is there, and it's taking flash pictures of me, the daddy, him with his hand up my skirt or whatever. I wanted to eat. So I did what they told me to do. And if you didn't do it, you didn't get on the bus and go home. So I don't know what happened to those other children, but I was terrified of being left there and starving. So all the analogies, going through the mirror, the reversals of light and dark, I was constantly being spun on disorienting wheels, and right out of Alice in Wonderland, and spinning while people chanted, "There is no light, there is no dark, there is no good, there is no bad, no up, no down, no day, no night." And what have we got right now? We've got people who can't tell men from women, up from down, good from bad. It's the progression of that, which I experienced in the 1950s, to our society in general. And the drug experimentation, LSD is the core chemical for Prozac. So out of the MK Ultra development program came an oral medication, and their goal was to get the entire country anesthetized, dumbed down, and not thinking. And they've been extremely successful in that. I think like 40% of the population in a certain age group is on Prozac. So it's so addictive, you can't get off of it. So anyway, so that was my background as a small child. And then it went on for years. So I escaped in 1966, went on to put myself through college, medical school, and then ran an underground railroad for 20 years in Russia.
Wow.
But that's a whole book.
No, I know. I believe it. So when you approach the men at Disneyland, would you go up to males who were there by themselves, or what was the target? I mean, were men there like looking for this specifically, and that's why they were at Disneyland, or what was the target of that?
Well, I was under the age of 10. By the time I was 10, I wasn't doing that anymore. So as my thinking about it was to go find a daddy, someone who would buy me some food, and then I would have to like pay them back by doing what it was they wanted. But my job was to get them in the toad ride.
Right.
So I was in a program called Sex Magic. And this was a program designed by Aleister Crowley and his Satanist colleagues. And it's all about projecting sexuality into other people in order to manipulate them, while not feeling anything the least bit sexual myself. So it's acting, you know. I got to be very, very good because I wanted the cheeseburger, you know. That was my motivation, was food.
Right.
And the rest of it, nobody's as hungry as a starving child. So
wow. Thank you for sharing that. So I'm wondering, when the Wizard of Oz was written, did they, I'm because I'm trying to think back now before the movie, but was the intention of the script one thing, and then they completely manipulated it into this story and then used for MK Ultra, or was the original story itself somewhat nefarious, or was it more innocent? Lynne, does that question make sense?
It does, and I believe that the story was intentionally written and crafted, and the movie created for these activities. You know, as Cathy mentioned, Disney was involved in all of this. It was all MK Ultra mind control. Look at the extensive systems in the tunnels. You know, I was in the tunnels underneath the universities and the labs being experimented on. But we have extensive tunnels under the United States, and well, actually under the oceans and throughout the world. But the movies were created for MK Ultra mind control.
Because I remember hearing the Tin Man, the tax identification number, the straw man, that the original Dorothy's original slippers were supposed to have been silver, and then they were changed to ruby. So I just didn't know, you know, how that was manipulated, and if, you know, I suppose that's why I'm wondering if there was something that was supposed to be somewhat good about it rather than completely nefarious from the get-go. Cathy, any input on that?
Anything can be used and manipulated and twisted. You know, my owner in MK Ultra Mind Control was Senator Byrd, and Senator Byrd was in office for over 50 years. He could quote the Constitution the same way Satanists quote the Bible, twisting it to fit his globalist agenda, the same way that Satanists use the Bible to promote their, you know, evil. So I think anything can be twisted and manipulated because the subconscious mind, when it lacks its conscious mind filter, will just take information in, and it doesn't even have to be logical. It doesn't have to make sense. So I really don't know what the basis of the stories were, but Disney obviously was complicit, and since it was the same time frame, it does suggest that, you know, that might be the case with some of these other themes, you know, like and the Alice in Wonderland theme. That's a very common one too. You know, was that written bad? You know, it's hard to say. You
Right.
know,
They can invert anything.
Yeah.
they can, and it's like, you know, I was thinking when you were talking about your father watching Juliet. You know, I mean, they're so soullessly horrific some with that stuff. But my father did that, and he said, um, "You earn your keep, and I'll keep what you earn." You know, so they always do that kind of reversal. They'll switch it around. So I had to earn my keep, and then he kept what I earned, and so I never saw any money for all the
Wow.
money my handlers made and everything else. You know, they can reverse anything. It's the same thing with the spin programming you mentioned, Juliet, because the spin programming was what they use the tornado in Wizard of Oz to represent, you know, is that kind of spinning. And there's no up nor down or black or white or in or out. And it creates spatial awareness problems, you know, ultimately what is left, what is right, you know, it makes it difficult. So there's just so many similarities in our experiences, and yet we're all three of us are so vastly different in what we did experience and how we were used. I was used sexually, but it wasn't any kind of sex magic. It was because my sexual abuse began in infancy, when my father was um, substituting his penis for my mother's nipple, if I may say. And ultimately, that went into my survival, my eating, my drinking, my breathing. It was everything right there. And so it conditioned that in my mind, so that I didn't have to go to get a hamburger. I was sexual because I thought that was food. You know, I mean, I didn't know any better.
Right.
So, you know, you get these distortions that affect the subconscious and can be manipulated throughout a victimization. And it's in consciously remembering it all and understanding it that we gain insight into our own mind brain function and how brilliant our minds are, that we can heal from that and actually put things back into perspective. But what we've endured in the process is is something that everyone needs to understand in order to not be affected by mind control tactics that are used on society today. You know, and so that when everybody's sheltered at home, for example, when mind control masked as a virus was unleashed on the global population, we watched our livelihoods burn. Well, they told us on TV, oh, that's a peaceful demonstration.
Right.
And if we defended ourselves, we were the violent ones, you know. So they can do any kind of reversal like that because the subconscious mind cannot differentiate that. That's why it's so important that everyone everywhere stop the manipulation of our of our conscious mind, to stop that trauma from shutting down those neuron pathways, to stop them from causing our conscious mind to freeze and fright, because we need to be protecting our subconscious mind. What they can pump in there is absolutely limitless and illogical and everything else. But nevertheless, it starts to drive people's thoughts. And it's, you know, something we're definitely seeing the effects of in society today.
Oh yeah, I mean, you have people that are okay with their taxes going to Somalian daycares, and they're literally putting their lives on the line for it. And it's backwards and upside down.
It is.
Yeah.
You know, Juliette, I would love to share. You know, you shared a few websites links with me, and I'd love to go through those with you and showcase those if now is a good time.
No, it's really important because for years of hundreds of thousands of survivors that grew up in this program. And it's not just the centers like Cathy and Lynne and I were in. There's the GATE program, GATE, which runs in public schools. There's numerous programs and cults and variations. So this program is huge. And all the while they're denying that it existed and telling us we're crazy, denying any kind of care for survivors, any kind of medical support or emotional support. And this year, actually, this is fine. We'll start with this one. This in December of 2024, December 24th, 2024, so right before Christmas when nobody's looking, the National Security Archive started releasing documents from the National Security Archives, who collected the information from the CIA documents, and they're not redacted and they were released. So this is actually the second one, but if you can go down a little bit, you'll start seeing each set of documents has a summary of what they were doing, and the depositions from the church committee, which was the only time there was a Senate hearing on the MK Ultra programs, and that was in 1976. And that's where I get my figure that at that time there had to be at least 300,000 people, victims, children to adult, who were in the MK Ultra programs being victimized. And it mentions in here that in the mid 60s, they realized that if some of us started surviving, if we actually lived through the process and got our memories back, that we would sue the CIA. And they got very upset about that. And their solution, which is written on little notes to each other in this set of documents, was to start bringing in children from other countries. Because as foreigners, as trafficked children from other countries, they would grow up without protection under the Bill of Rights. And that's exactly what started happening. And it's what's happening now. And they made the conscious decision in here to call them all Mexicans, because if the American people realized they were trafficking French children or English children, or they might get more upset. This is in their notes. So they made the conscious decision to call them all Mexicans. And this is still going on. So when 300,000 children, up to 500,000 by the later estimates in the last 3 years, have come across the border unaccompanied and disappeared, there are probably a lot of Ukrainian children, African children, children who anywhere there's war and unprotected children, they'll be trafficked. They'll be brought here. They'll be brought across the border. They'll be put into programs used for organ transplantation, sexual exploitation, all of these things, and called Mexicans. And in the State Department documents from last year, they talk about the fact that all these Mexicans were brought across the border. And this is the document that blocks everything every year. And can you go to the top?
Yeah, this one?
Yeah, go to the heading.
Okay,
to show
perfect.
people what it is.
Right here.
This is the Trafficking in Persons report. And this is put out by the Trafficking in Persons Office of the U.S. State Department every year to evaluate every country in terms of their level of human trafficking, how good they are, how successful their efforts are, and do they need to be sanctioned. So economic sanctions are the result of bad results. And every year the U.S. comes out, number one, no trafficking, no child abuse, no cross-border unaccompanied minors, none of that, even though the State Department reports up to 500,000 are coming across the borders. But since this is the official statement by the U.S. State Department, it blocks our ability to get access and support for survivors. It blocks all attempts at doing law enforcement education. It blocks all attempts at supporting volunteer organizations at the border, because the State Department has spoken. We don't have trafficking. And we all know that's completely false. And so they confess they've done it. They confess they've done it since 1953. They confess how evil it is. And then the State Department says, oh no, we're number one. we
Wow.
don't do that here.
Right. Now, is there anything on those three documents that you want me to share specifically, or those probably take some digging once you get...
Go ahead and dig. It shows they're good because they show pictures of the people involved, the places. Yeah. And if you're an old timer like me, I recognize the people. I recognize one of the places. So, especially if you're from the state of, well, there's several different states in there, but yeah, go poking through there. It's each one has about 30 pages of summary, and then all kinds of side notes that lead to about 1,200 documents. And they admit it. There it is.
Right.
Who did it? Why they did it? They even have little notes to each other about, boy, that party was fun the other night. And I know what those parties were. They were parties abusing, raping children because I was a party favor. Right. So I know what they were doing. And I grew up in the music industry. That was where I was.
So when you say in the music industry, so is that were those the people that you were introduced to primarily was in the music industry then? Yes.
It was Los Angeles, Hollywood. My mother was born and grew up in Hollywood. My great-grandfather ran a record company that later became Columbia Records. And I was a party favorite. I mean, what can I say? My job was to dance around in a miniskirt with no underwear and hand out LSD at parties for record executives. And I did a lot of that. And when I was done doing that, I'd go study geometry and forget I'd ever been there.
Right.
But yeah, it was the people you see that are performing for Super Bowls, and you wonder, why on earth is that old cow out there jumping around and getting paid millions? It's the programming. It's from this. I mean, it's people who can't sing, people who can't entertain, but they've given them they've given their souls. They're doing whatever it is that's required of them. They're following the line. Right. They're the mind slaves.
So yeah, so it's interesting. So I'm just picturing, what's been challenging for me, and I talk about this often on the show, is I was a huge fan of U2, and then you start, looking at who Bono's affiliated with, and you start wondering, was the entire story of U2 fabricated, just like was the entire story of Fleetwood Mac fabricated, or were these bands good up to a point and then manipulated and then either switched out, cloned, doubles, or whatever? Is there any insight into that and how that might work?
Yeah, they were put together. Like in my vintage, it was when the Journeyman, John Phillips, and his Michelle Phillips and Cass Elliott. So they weren't the mamas and papas. They were all different groups, and they were put together in the MK Ultra program and taught to sing. So it was completely manufactured, and the whole image and the photographs and the songs that were picked for them. Then the other one that was just coming in as I was escaping was the Doors, and they couldn't sing, but they were all children of high-level military officials, and they couldn't play, so they were dreadful. And the party I escaped from, which was in Monterey at a place it's now called Esalen, then it was Murphy Hot Springs, the boonies, and the Doors were playing, but they had a professional band brought in to actually play the music, and they had professional singers, but they were selling contracts for the Doors, who really couldn't sing, but the record execs were getting high on LSD and rolling around on the ground, getting photographed naked, which was my job.
Right.
And one of their favorite backup musicians who could play guitar, drums, and actually sing was Charles Manson. So he would fill in for all these groups. So when you're listening to early recordings from the Doors, that's Charles Manson is singing in there and playing, and they used others also. So it was all false, but the deal was to blackmail the executives, which is how you got all these people being promoted who couldn't play or sing really. And
so what about later when someone would go to a Doors concert and they would see, you know, John Densmore and Robbie Krieger and Jim Morrison up on stage?
Well, they had sound loops and they had professional musicians backing them up. So they had studio musicians that did the actual music whenever they were live.
Wow. This is the first time I'm hearing this, so this is pretty crazy.
Really?
Yeah. Well, yeah, especially specifically about the Doors, you know.
Yeah. Oh, they were bad. But they had charisma. I mean, what's his name? Morrison. He was very compelling. So, you know, you pick the ones like Charlie Kirk, Jim Morrison, people that has to have it, you know, they're just people that people want to hear and want to see. And eventually they taught Jim Morrison to sing, and he would do anything on stage they wanted him to do, but that's why he was high all the time. But the music was very, very much manipulated. But the whole thing was in the beginning to get those record execs out in a barn in Murphy Hot Springs, which was on the coast of Monterey, an isolated little barn in a corn patch, get them naked on the ground, get them photographed, and get them signing contracts while they were high on LSD that committed them for the rest of their lives. So that's how it happened.
Wow. Anyone else want to jump in? I need a moment to process all this.
Yeah, I could jump in real easy on this because I'd take it to the next level with Michael Jackson. He was MK Ultra Project Monarch, which is a multi-generational project. It had been found in Himmler research that any knowledge-based, abuse-based, or belief system is passed down autogenically in the brain. It's genetic, you know, that comes in. And so in my case, I was in Monarch because I was in a multi-generational incest-based family. Michael Jackson was MK Ultra Project Monarch because he was multi-generational in a musical family. So he had the talent, but he also had the extreme abuse base. He had the sexual abuse and everything else that LaToya Jackson has done her best to bring out, you know, the horrific childhood that they all had. But Michael Jackson was then used as a cash cow, you know, making the music, and they would his family, other people would make the money, and the music at that time had been taken over with harmonics because harmonics vibrate the neuron pathways in the brain, and it's a simple thing to think of a song you fell in love to, you know, and then you hear that song again and you have a squish moment. Oh yeah, because it reminds you so clearly of that moment. And that's just a small example of how music vibrates neuron pathways in people who haven't even been conditioned. It's just the way it works. So then you add a deliberate level of it to the music, and you can carry a message into the subconscious that drives people, and so the music became controlled from that point. Also, look at Michael Jackson, Disney, the whole Disney programming. He was programmed in the Disney Underground at Disney World, just like I was. It was a big DARPA epicenter. Britney Spears, same thing, you know, and the same thing with the harmonics being brought in the music. I think one of the key players in bringing harmonics into the music to deliberately vibrate the neuron pathways in the brain, from what I've heard, not who I know, was Phil Spector. So, you know, we've got all these people that have been around forever that have been moving into using music to control the minds of the population. So my MK Ultra mind control experience, all my music was controlled completely because they knew that it would vibrate those neuron pathways in the brain. And they chose what was going to be going into my head. And I never got to choose. They didn't let me listen to hippie music about freedom, peace, and love. And, I didn't get any of that stuff. I got exactly what they programmed me to listen to. And it was at Mackinac Island, Michigan, which was the Epstein Island of its time, where they decided that they would use the harmonics and make the Osmonds, the Osmond family, the Pied Pipers of into the Mormon Church. So that was when the Jesuits merged into the Mormon Church, which was a combination of trauma and sexual abuse and harmonics. The harmonics were a key part of the Mormon Church. So they used the harmonics to lead people in through the Osmonds. So the Osmonds, I know, were also in MK Ultra. I was programmed with Marie at Youngstown Charm School. So, the view that I've had into the music industry has been extensive too. And it came in the later years when they added the harmonics and and many of the singers were absolute total robotic MK Ultra mind control slaves.
Right. Like there's a gentleman we've had on the show a few times, Mike Williams, the Sage of Quay, that basically went into, how the Beatles were put together, how there's no way they could have released, I think it was, I could be wrong, but I think it was Rubber Soul or one of their later albums. And that, there's no way they could have got it from recording to press in an organic timeline. And that they were, there was a drummer who played on 20 some of the different tracks. So, it does make you wonder who's doing the writing of these songs, and anything in film or music that really reaches the masses. Likely it's for a reason, and for the MK Ultra, and for the messages that they want to control society with. Is that fair to say?
Yes. And right now, I don't know if you've been following Candace Owens, but she's been evaluating the unraveling of TPUSA,
Right.
which is going to turn out to be another massive MK Ultra mind control operation that could be traced way back. And she's on it. There it is. And if everybody watches that, pays attention, they're going to see the man behind the curtain in The Wizard of Oz. Because it's coming, the masks are coming down, the lies are contradicting, the everything is confused. So
when we look at Charlie Kirk, obviously his message has gotten out even more to the masses since he's been taken out, or whatever did happen to him. I mean, there's a lot of questions there. So was the Charlie Kirk story used from the very beginning to get to this point? Do you believe, or was there an organic Charlie Kirk that then was taken over somehow?
I don't know. It's perfectly possible that he was MK Ultra from the beginning, in that anyone that has a meteoric rise and gets huge amounts of money, particularly from like South Korea, like they did, and the Moonies, that it's all part of the controlled cult. But I don't know. I suggest you follow Candace, because she's on this, and I think you're going to get a lot of revelation if you keep your mind open.
It sounds like it. Well, I do want to showcase the websites that both of you have. So Juliette, I'm going to start with Our Country, Your Children, so you can share a little bit more about your website with the audience. Here we go. You could talk us through this and what specifically to look at, and we'll go from there. So here we are.
Yes, this is Our Country, Our Choice, which if you scroll down, you'll see that it's a website with a lot of useful information. There are many articles and videos and information about human trafficking, child trafficking. Of course, I got into trouble with this by going very deeply into the organizations that are doing trafficking and what constitutes red flags, but we've got it back up again. So I suggest everybody go there, take a look, download articles, and start, particularly pay attention. We focused on globalism and child abuse. And child abuse and child trafficking is being used to fund globalism. And the ways this is happening and the way UN agencies are being used to perpetuate this, we have a lot of information about that on there. And so go get it before it's taken down again. And my personal website is www.julietteengel.com.
Right.
Just went past there. And I have 3 books on there.
Okay. I did. Is that link on here?
Yes. It's, I don't know if it's on that page. No, but I did send it to you.
I'll grab it. I'll grab it. I have it right over here, actually. So
because it's how you can order my books about the work I did in Russia for 20 years, running an underground railroad.
Okay, I found that one. Let me put this up, and then I'll share this tab instead. Okay, there it is.
There we go. There are my books. Sparky is my story of growing up in sex magic, and it's written from my perspective inside my childhood. So I thought that would be useful for therapists and people, and it was the only way I could remember everything. Angels Over Moscow is about my 20 years in Russia working to stop child trafficking in Eastern Europe. And Moscow Traffic is a novel about the MK Ultra program in Russia. So MK Ultra was spread all over the world after World War II. And we're learning as we have conferences and meetings with people from other countries, survivors from other countries, that it's the same. They use the same techniques, the same approaches, the same methods, the same vibrations. So this was a global project from the beginning. And
it's hard to believe because most people are good people, I would think, and then of course there's some NPCs out there, and possibly we've heard of reptilians, but how I think this is what's challenging for most people that may not watch shows like this, is to wrap their heads around that there can be so much darkness out there that's taken control, and likely it's been in control for a very long time. So anything you want to speak on that topic, because it's wrapping the general public's mind around how much deception there is. I think that's a hard pill to swallow.
So I can jump in there. I believe that everyone started waking up, especially during COVID, as Cathy was talking about earlier. That was the first time that the whole world saw MK Ultra above ground, is what I call it, because I always saw it below ground, and then in secret in the trafficking houses and at the satanic conventions and at the SRA events. So now it became above ground, and the whole world got to experience exactly what MK Ultra is. And then people started waking up. If anyone thinks that this has stopped, in 1993, our government, while people are debating, is MK Ultra real? In 1993, our government merged the MK Ultra department with the remote viewing department. And those two topics, people can't wrap their mind around. But I know, I'm able to remote view. It's something that I've been able to do since I was a little girl, as well as all kinds of other things. And I really encourage people to read the CIA information that Juliette shared. In my lane, it's the universities, a lot about the universities. And I have read those documents when Juliette shared them. And they start listing the names of the universities that have been harming the children and the adults, and they're listed in there. And people need to be fully aware. This is all across the United States. I'm kind of hard pressed to find some that aren't. SG has done a lot of reveals about the horrific experiments being done in our universities. They are not, they may be in the United States, but they are not U.S. universities. They are not We the People universities. They were infiltrated through Operation Paperclip with all of the Nazis. They're in the third generation of professors now. And the Department of Re-Education has a pedophile agenda, starting with the babies. During the Obama years, it required the babies in any federally funded little places that take care of children to teach them about sex. Why on earth are they teaching babies about sex? It's beyond the pale horrific. And then by the time they're in kindergarten, it is a pedophile agenda. It's put through the UN. Totally backed by the UN 2030, because the UN, go to their web, this is all public and people can research. People can research the CIA documents. They can read Cathy's books, which are factual documents of what's happened. They can go to and look at these universities. And from my life wave, helping people with their trauma, I have people all over the world who have been impacted by MK Ultra. I have one of my clients when she was a little girl, was at a university in California, and Mendele was there, and he lobotomized her. And she remembers that. I have people in Germany who were part of the CIA Black Forest operations. To Juliette's point, this is worldwide. These are heinous crimes against humanity, and we need accountability. And we need, to Juliette's point, the victims. There are so many victims. And I'll tell you, these children across the border, I have a friend I had Michael Yon on my show a couple of weeks ago, and I meant to ask him this, but a friend who had talked to him, 10 million children. It's not 300,000. It's not 10 million children came across the border during the Biden administration. Wow. 10 million. And people say, where are they? Well, they're where we've all been talking. So many are underground. So many are gone, because most of the children, the majority, whenever I was little, didn't make it for one reason or another. And so when people ask, how can this be and how can this be real? Part of it is the world has been MK Ultra. How can we be missing 800,000 children a year per the FBI, who's likely in on it, and no one see? It's as if the entire city of Kansas City fills up with children every year, and then they're gone, and no one sees it. No one pays attention to that. I mean, it's unfathomable. That's the degree of the MK Ultra. Thank God people are waking up now. But all people need to do is their research. Cathy's books, Juliette's books. Look at that CIA document. Listen to shows like this. The research, it's unredacted now. And people can look for themselves and just look to their own experiences during COVID and see exactly what is happening.
Right. I do have a clip from Dr. David Martin about the biolabs. I thought it'd be fitting to play this. And I don't know if either of you ladies have seen this, but I'll play this. It's only a minute long. So
silence. But ironically, you've seen silence on the other side. You've never seen Tucker or Rogan or any of these guys talk about the bioweapons programs happening in the United States under university support, and nobody puts two and two together. When you see an elected official going into Congress, they get $200,000-$300,000 a year salary. They go into Congress, and 10 years later, they have $150 million.
Yeah.
Or in the case of a couple more recent, $240 million. Now, Chris, I don't know about you, but it feels like there must be some money laundering going on somewhere because, oh, that's right, we don't want to talk about this. We don't want the public to know that our state universities in America are currently money laundering exercises as slush funds to move money from the federal government to elected officials through the cunning use of lab research that should never be done under any civilized nation on earth. And we don't have any problem with that happening, and not a single person in the media is willing to talk about it.
So, and that's the thing. You won't see a meteoric rise of truth stream because we do talk about this stuff. So, and thank you for the comments. Yeah, and we are a live show. The stripping of the children's innocence ought to infuriate adults. And you're right. It should. It should. But somehow, because of the MK Ultra, even now after COVID, so many people are still in a coma, you know, and I think that's why, you know, conversations like this and websites like yours, and I do want to get into Cathy's website as well, so she can share a little bit about that. Cathy, anything you want to say yet before we jump into your website?
Well, we're talking about how society has been MK Ultra, and you know, you get that multi-generational aspect into the conditioning of the population, go all the way back to Disney. When it was found in Himmler research, there's no trauma more horrific on the human mind than sexual abuse of a child prior to age 5 while the brain is still forming. The pedophile agenda is a mind control agenda. And the sexualization of children is going on blatantly in the school system and everything else. Where are the parents? They've been conditioned for generations to stand down on the issue because of Disney. Go back to that all the way from the get-go. Disney was subliminally promoting pedophilia. Now people know, they just associate pedophilia with Disney. I mean, they're like synonymous. But the whole pedophile agenda was being set in on humanity for generations, just slowly creeping into the subconscious. And then it's passed down generationally, and it's created this compliance with an agenda because people forgot their own mind-brain function. They forgot that it shuts down neuron pathways in the brain. It makes people compliant. They don't get to even think to live their life's purpose and the reason they're here, because they're just doing what they're told to do, what they're indoctrinated and conditioned to do. We've had generations of that. Well, people are waking up. The Great Awakening is happening, and it's growing as more and more truth comes to light. Knowledge is our defense against mind control. That knowledge is getting out there. Having been speaking out on this for over 35 years, I see the massive difference between now and then. So while in so many ways it seems like the whole world is MK Ultra, because they are, the whole world is also waking up because of the resiliency of the strength of the human spirit, because we have been divinely designed. That's why I've got my new book, Align with the Divine. It's a way of reclaiming our birthright to live our innocence, to live our freedom, to live the love we are, to gather the strength of the human spirit. In so many ways, this whole mind control agenda is a spiritual warfare, because I know from my experience that without free thought, there's no free will. If there's no free will, there's no soul expression.
Right.
Without soul expression, we lose our moral compass. We lose our ability to have compassion for each other. We lose our ability to go within ourselves. We've been conditioned for generations to look to big government, big pharma, big tech, big cult religion to tell us how to live our lives. Anything to distract us away from the strength of the human spirit, because it's our saving grace. It's where we win and where they lose. Haven't been around these perpetrators. I know their greatest fear is the strength of the human spirit. They are low vibration, dark, negative energy force that feed off of negative energy. They feed off of fear, hatred, division, low vibration. That's where they're wanting us to be. That's why our humanity is under attack, because the strength of the human spirit is such a high vibration, they can't touch it. Since they can't touch it, the only thing they can do is shut down neuron pathways in the brain, use MK Ultra mind control to stop us from going within and reclaiming our free thought, free will, soul expression. When we have that soul expression, we align with the divine within. We have the strength of the human spirit. We tap into the infinite power of love. We have resiliency of body, mind, and spirit. It's our saving grace. We have been made perfect. Our whole design is our brains are perfect. We just need to remember to use them. And that's what they're trying to keep us from, is being able to think, to use our own minds. Mind control shuts down neuron pathways. We need them open. We need our brains firing. We need to use our brilliant minds, because when we do, we're able to live our life's purpose, and we're able to say no to their nefarious agenda.
Wow. I mean, to have the three of you on the same show, and if you ladies can make it through, I hope that this is inspiring for anybody, because I think that you've been through likely the most traumatic thing that a human and a child could have been through, and to see your resilience and your smiles and sharing your stories and strength with each other, like I'm blown away that I get to do this, and to help some way learn and heal and teach all at the same time for anyone who watches our show. Is there anything that we haven't covered that either of you want to make sure that we cover? And I will play the music video at the end here, and the whole point of why I did it, the Over the Rainbow, is to help, to help heal and to take the rainbow back, and to help shed light that there's a new world coming. So that's my contribution through art, because that's what I've been doing for a long time before a truth stream. So Lynne, is there anything we haven't touched on today that you want to make sure we cover?
Did you want to review my website, or were you going to do that a little bit later in the show? Okay.
Let's do it. That would be great. Let me pull that up. Q Grit.
So let me tell you how this website came to be. While I was still in deep healing, I call it social isolation, I had all my businesses. I'm an international award-winning human resource consultant, but nonetheless, socially, I was in isolation healing for a long time. And during those years, God gave me his aftercare plan for the little ones once they're rescued from above ground and below ground trafficking, as well as to help adults with any type of trauma. And that opening line, I want my people healed, in 2022, I heard the audible voice of God. And just like this, he said it. He goes, I want my people healed, like a commander in chief. He was very, very serious. And he told me to look into non-invasive healing modalities to help everybody. And so then I started a journey in finding those, and I share those on my website and still do as I come across them. But the whole goal, he didn't say look into big pharma. Part of why I was underground in those labs, they were experimenting. The big pharma we have today was from the sacrifice of the little children during the horrific drug experiments. And that is not what God told me to look at, not into the unhealthcare system, but into natural, non-invasive healing modalities. And then once the night before he had me speak, I put this website together for him, and he named it Q Grit. And you know that John Wayne movie where the little girl, True Grit, where the little girl goes after the bad guys with their guns and she's all feisty? That's what this is named after. This is exactly what this is named after. But yeah. And that his idea, he has a marvelous sense of humor. And the Q stands for quantum. And that's because we're going to go down to the detail of this. And we're going to eradicate this from the face of the earth. And I list on here all kinds of, it's very similar to Juliette's website, tips and recommendations about, it's what this organization offers. And so there was a page about that and where we're going and how people can support us. There's also information about what to do, how to recognize if a little one is being trafficked or harmed, what to do and not do, because our systems are so horrifically corrupt. I do not recommend anyone goes into the system at all, because they're feeder systems into the trafficking of our little children, top to bottom. I've had too many, well, we have the ladies' stories in mind, but I have too many stories of whistleblowers that I have on, I'm a host now on the Patriots Prayer Network. I've got a voice reach of 1.5 million, and boy, am I using it. And it's, God said, he goes, I'm going to open doors and you just keep walking. And boy, I am. And from all the whistleblowers that I have, you enter anywhere into our systems, you enter into the judicial systems, and the children are going to be harmed and the pedophiles elevated. You enter into the child protective services, which I can't even say that name. I call it the child pedophile services. Someone called it the child profiting services. It's all the same. They're feeder organizations to traffic and harm these little ones. You go into the unhealthcare system. It's a feeder organization. I mean, they're all feeder organizations to harm the little ones and to fund the deep state with what they're doing. So on the website, I have how to recognize it, what to do and not do to help the little ones. There's a contact page people can reach out to me for if they have any questions. And I get asked all the time, what can I do to help? I've got tons of ideas on there, what people can do to help, because I'm telling you where we're going. We're in Ecclesiastes 3 time period, a time to tear down and a time to build. And these corrupt systems that we have, they're coming down, and the rebuilding is coming. And we need everyone healthy, because we're going to live a long life on the other side of this. We need everyone healthy for the rebuilding process, to get our systems the way that we want them, to protect the children, and to have the most amazing, enlightenment time that we have ever had. So I give recommendations to people too on that, and how to support those who have trauma. I'm having Dr. Jan Halper Hayes on my show tomorrow.
That's so cool.
I know, the people I'm becoming friends with, I'm just so honored. Juliette
Wow.
and Cathy and I'm just amazed. But Dr. Jan will say 83% of the world has PTSD and trauma. The world, 83%. So we need solutions, and we need some non-invasive healing modalities to help everyone, because we've got work to do, and we need everybody well. And that's where we're going. What a time to be alive.
Juliette, anything you want to say that we might have not touched on?
Lynne, that was fantastic. I'm just so impressed with what you've been doing with your channel, and so grateful too, because you're getting the information out there, and I think you're really good at organizing things and making plans. And so my advice, get off of Prozac. Whoever is on any mind-altering, thought-altering medication, get off of it, and you'll see the world differently. Terrible. It'll be difficult. It's highly addictive, but it was designed to take away your brain. So get your brain back.
Yeah, we don't need drugs. We do need non-invasive therapy. I'm so glad that's your focus. It's definitely mine. I have 3 books out now that it's my healing trilogy: PTSD, Time to Heal, Resolutions, and Align with the Divine. And every one of them is about non-invasive healing, is about going within, because ultimately when we heal from within ourselves, we're able to heal psychiatrically, psychologically, emotionally, spiritually. We get that rudder back, where we can navigate fully. It's so important. And then my other books that you see there, Transformation of America, is my 1995 testimony for Congress. National security was invoked on it. Bill Clinton was president at the time. Of course, national security was invoked on it. Access denied for reasons of national security tells our journey through the corrupted justice and mental health system to help my daughter, Kelly, who was thrust into the so-called Child Protective Services system that I saw being set up during the 80s when Senator Byrd had an office in the Hoover building and the FBI building, setting up the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children as a catch-net operation to thrust children into continued abuse and trafficking through so-called Child Protective Services. So the very system I saw being structured, my daughter was thrust into, and that's what compelled me to start speaking out back in 1990, was out of love for her and on her behalf. Access Denied shows where all the roots of corruption are planted, and Transformation of America reads like a history book. Now, when it was released in 1995, it was prophetic, saying who was going to be placed in the office of president, and how we came to this point of mind control of the global population. How what I experienced as a little child being trafficked has now become the most lucrative business in the world, child sex trafficking. So all that information, the roadmaps to it are right there, so we can undo this mess. But it begins with each and every one of us reclaiming our free thought, reclaiming our birthright to live our life's purpose. We all need to remember who we are and why we're here at this pivotal moment in humanity's history, so that we can do our part in taking down this corrupt system. When we shine that light of love, when we shine so bright, we're going to dissipate their darkness once and for all. So ultimately, we've got that victory. And my healing trilogy helps people to reclaim that, no matter what they've experienced in life. This is a traumatic planet. Most people do have PTSD. Most people have experienced grief or guilt or trauma. There's so many different levels, and every bit of it can be overcome when we apply the healing that we have within us. No outside invasive therapy. That doesn't help. It's our own personal journey, and we have that capability within us. Pick up a pen and paper, write out your trauma, write out your fear, write out what's immobilizing you. Because the very act of moving a pen activates the logic critical analysis part of the brain. So it takes emotionally incomprehensible trauma, shifts it over to logic, opening neuron pathways in the brain all along the way. It's written out on paper in front of you, consciously seen and dealt with. And there's the healing, psychiatrically, psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, all right there. And it's all so simple. It's easy to self-apply. All that's available on my website. All my books are on Audible. I've read them myself. So,
oh, cool.
Yeah, to preserve the integrity of information. And also, there's a million blog posts there. I just released an article on Erica Kirk, what people can do to recognize MK Ultra, to recognize infiltration into churches and into organizations like TP USA. We have the knowledge. We just need to know what to be looking for in order to stop this. I've got an article I just wrote on Michael Aquino that is that just ties right in how the reverberating influence he has. So a lot of information on MK Ultra, how it ties in today, and above all, what we can do about it, because we don't need to be overwhelmed with information. We need to be empowered by truth and start making the positive necessary changes in this world. We can't wait on government to do it for us. Government's doing it to us. This is our time to take back our personal power and start living life the way it was intended to be lived.
Beautiful. Well, I think that covers most of everything I wanted to cover today. Ladies, thank you so much for being part of this, and hopefully that this show helps create some healing for whoever's watching. So with that, I'll go ahead and I'll play the music video, and we'll say bye to everybody. And this has been such an amazing experience to have all three of you together. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, here we go. Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, there's a land that I heard of once in a lullaby. Somewhere over the rainbow, skies of blue, and the dreams that you dare to dream really do come true. One day I'll wish upon a star and wake up where the clouds are far, but far behind me, where troubles melt like lemon drops away above the chimney tops, is where you'll find me. Is where you'll find me. Is where you'll find me.
Somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly. If birds fly over the rainbow, why, oh why can't I? If happy little bluebirds fly beyond the rainbow, why, oh why can't I? Oh, if happy little bluebirds fly beyond the rainbow, why, oh why can't I? Why can't I? Why can't we? We'll soar over mountains into our dreams. Oh, why can't I? Oh, why can't we? We'll soar over mountains into our dreams. Into our dreams now. Into our dreams now. Oh, oh. Into our dreams now. Into our dreams now. Oh, oh. Ooh, 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 ooh.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. My heart, I mean, that I thought I was going to sit here and cry. I had to fight not crying because it was so beautiful. Because Joe, you did it. You took it back. You took back what was stolen from us with that Oz programming. It's just, isn't it beautiful, ladies? I think I'm going to cry if I speak anymore.
They can't have
Go ahead.
rainbows. They can't have monarchs. They can't have rose. They can't take away the beauty of life and of nature, and music can't take away the beauty of that song. It's all how we choose, and it's ours. Everything that's beautiful, everything natural, it's ours. Yeah, thank you for doing that. It's a beautiful, beautiful song.
Beautiful piece.
Absolute honor. Absolute honor. Well, I think that wraps everything up, ladies. I'll be in touch, Lynne, with you very soon. And ladies, thank you so much for being here. It's an honor to do this work.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was good to see you, ladies.
you.
It was like having friends today. It was great.
Always.
Always.
Yeah. Love you both.
Bye-bye.
All right. With that, I'll play the outro and see you guys soon. Take care. Ciao. Much love.
I have known for some time something about the world ain't right. A darkness lives in plain sight, in the ether. Adjust your eyes. There are those that have no clue. You give them hints, they just stare at you. Most have lived in Plato's cave, watching